Here's the thing. I know we're not supposed to go down in conspiracy land. I just live there permanently.
Welcome to the Be Wise podcast. I am your host, Chris Wright. We discuss politics, entertainment, sports, and social media. So it's late night on a Monday night, and I got to thinking about the whole Candace Owens investigation into Kamala Harris genealogy. It's been staying on my mind because I've been keeping up with every episode, and it's such a thorough investigation. And I'm really kind of pissed off, but I'm disappointed too. And why is that? Because the media is not picking this up. I mean, I've never seen an investigation like this. So Candace Owens has 3 million followers, almost like 2.75 million followers on YouTube. She has another few million on X and Instagram and Facebook. So I know the story's out there, and I just don't understand why someone isn't questioning it. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. The Menendez brothers Netflix series has 2 billion views. And it's a documentary based on a story based on something that happened in 1989. And 2.7 billion people have tuned into that. And it's had so much of an impact on social media that they are now talking about releasing these two brothers. And that can't, although, you know what, maybe they do deserve to get out. I'm not here to argue that tonight. But if there are questions about the heritage, the genealogy, the lies, or if there's something that should be brought to our attention for a person who wants to be the president of the United States, and there's all types of information and questions and untruths, information that just doesn't jive, family members, friends of family members coming out. I mean, there's documents, birth certificates, marriage licenses, college records. There's all types of information, and Candace is digging it up. And not only is she digging it up, but she's gone as far to tell her audience to get involved. She's giving rewards to people who has any information on the things that she's talking about. She even said, I want someone to send me a cease and desist so I can continue to go, and then they can sue me. And then if they sue me, they'll have to prove that I'm lying. They'll have to present the facts to a court. There's no cease and desist. There's no defamation lawsuits. There's literally nothing. So that's what bothers me, is that all of this, I mean, we're like up to episode 22 of this investigation, and nothing from the Harris campaign, nothing from Kamala Harris herself. She was questioned about it on the All the Smoke podcast, and she just goes, I ain't worried about that. I'm thinking, and I want to go on record. I want to go on record because I don't want to be late to the party. But I want to go on record as one of the ones who said, I believe Candace Owens. And why do I believe her? I'll just give you this video right here.
I find that to be a severe lie by omission. Here's the thing. I know we're not supposed to go down in conspiracy land. I just live there permanently because I think conspiracy land is gut land. And we are just all coming to terms with the fact that something is wrong. There is too much synergy between what is happening in France, Emmanuel Macron, his shady background, his wife, who's definitively born a man, okay? Him also being raised by his grandparents, shady, broken family structure, didn't really know his parents growing up, but his grandma was there and raised. It's all so related. The Barack Obama story follows the Emmanuel Macron story, follows the Kamala Harris story. How are they all growing up with such a similar non-existence? Just a non-existence, right? Like it doesn't make any sense.
She's right. I never even thought about it. I'm the biggest Barack Obama fan ever, I think. Where did he come from? Came out of nowhere. And then there's all this family disconnect. Never told us he lived in Indonesia until he was pressed about it. Yeah, I lived in Indonesia. Yeah, I lived with my stepfather. My name was Barry Satoro or something like that. I can't remember exactly. Yeah, I didn't. Why would he take his Kenyan father's last name of Obama when that wasn't his mother's last name? That wasn't his stepfather's last name. That wasn't his grandparents' last name. Then he lived in Hawaii, Indonesia for all these years, ends up in Chicago, married to the Robinson family. Like, when you really think about it, but do we have some type of deep state, some CIA, some type of conspiracy theory putting people in power? She was talking about Macron, which was the French president, and his wife, Brigitte Macron, being transgender, and she brought all that out. Again, there was no cease and desist. There was no defamation lawsuit. The only thing that was weird that happened, Pierce Morgan pressed her and she stuck to her guns. And YouTube pulled her video down because she interviewed a journalist who was also investigating it, and he was blacklisted, and they took that video down off YouTube. She was suspended off YouTube for a week. Basically told her, if you keep pushing this issue, we're going to take your whole page down. Bizarre. She turned us on to a book called, Chaos, about Charles Manson being an informant to the CIA in the 60s, and there was all these other connections. She talked to us about MK Ultra, and let me read you. MK Ultra was a human experimentation program designed and undertaken by the United States Central Intelligence Agency to develop procedures and identify drugs that could be used during interrogations to weaken individuals and force confessions through brainwashing and psychological torture. The term MK Ultra is a CIA cryptonym. MK is an arbitrary prefix standing for the Office of Technical Service, and Ultra is an arbitrary word out of a dictionary to dominate this project. So Candace does her homework. It's not like and like she said, she lives in conspiracy land. So what we're going to do, and what I'm not going to do, is I'm not going to show you full clips of her episode. I just want to tell you, in case you don't know, in case you haven't been following or paying attention, because I know when you're going to YouTube, you just see Candace investigation continues, and you see large bold letters like Kamala's grandmother or this, that, and the other. You see, but a lot of people don't really watch it. And these episodes have had as few as 368,000 views, and a few of them had over 1 million, and one of the videos had 2.9 million. And that's just on YouTube. So with all this viewership, all these people invested, where's the mainstream media? They're not talking about it. Some people aren't touching it. Are people afraid? Isn't it worth taking a look at? Okay, so some of you out there might be going, what difference does it make? Who cares if she's black, white, Indian? Who? That's not the point. What we're discovering through this investigation is that it's a deep cover-up. See, Watergate, a couple of guys breaking into the Watergate Hotel, stealing stuff from the DNC. Yeah, election fraud, hanky-panky, not good. But then it was the cover-up, the Nixon tapes, people being recorded in the Oval Office. What was that guy named? Deep Throat, Operation Deep Throat. Like, once they started to discover the deep, dark, issues involved in Watergate, it was like, this guy's got to go. This is deep. And the media got a hold of it. So it's not a matter of her ethnicity. Who cares? In 2024 in America, it doesn't matter what your race is. You can run for president and not too many people are going to care. Maybe a few races here and there. But when it looks like there's more people involved, things just start to wonder about things like, okay, mom, Indian, father, Marxist, professor, deeply involved in African studies, not really in her life. This Jamaican guy kind of disappeared here and there. Who's her grandmother? Photoshopped pictures. It just gets weird, man. It gets weird. So hang with me. We're going to go through this. I'm going to try and finish up fairly quickly. And how did this all start? This all started because the Guardian newspaper interviewed Janet Jackson. And Janet Jackson basically said something about Kamala Harris. And we're going to learn why Janet Jackson is kind of anti-Kamala as we watch these videos. Let's start with Sat 1.
It goes on, and she's quoting Janet here. On the Rhythm Nation album, for us, it was about making a difference in a kid's life, a teenager's life, from them taking this path with drugs and going down the wrong street to trying to make something of themselves. On that record, she sang about joining voices in protest to social injustice and pushing toward a world rid of color lines. I wonder where she stands in the forthcoming election. After all, I say, America could be on the verge of voting its first black female president, Kamala Harris. This is Janet Jackson. Well, you know what they said, supposedly, she asked me. She's not black. That's what I heard, that she's Indian. She looks at me expectantly, perhaps assuming that I have Indian heritage. Well, she's both, I offer. Her father's white, Janet says. That's what I was told. I mean, I haven't watched the news in a few days. I was told they discovered her father was white.
So that's where it all began. And then the Guardian came after her, after Janet Jackson. And then someone misrepresented Janet Jackson and says she apologizes. She didn't mean what she said. She very much supports, the vice president. And next thing I know, Janet was like, that guy doesn't speak for me. I meant exactly what I said. I was only mentioning what I heard. And for that reason, it looks like the Candace Owens just said, what? You don't mess with Janet Jackson, And again, that's more of the information that I'm talking about. Janet said, this is what I heard. So there's all this misinformation out there, contradictory information, things that just doesn't jive. And Janet was just mentioning it. So that's where it started. And Candace decided, I think I need to dig into this. So then on episode 2, she talks about this.
Well, happy Tuesday. I can tell you guys one thing. The powers that be really did not like our episode yesterday, because after we crossed 500,000 views in less than 5 hours, suddenly we got hit on YouTube with this bizarre age restriction. We've never been hit with that ever before. It said that we somehow violated the policy on graphic violence and nudity. I mean, what? We literally just read Kamala's book and pointed out a major discrepancy, mainly that her grandmother, who she produced a photo of herself with, happened to die before Kamala was born.
There's something I want to say about that photo is that when I first saw it, I immediately thought it was photoshopped because I didn't see any shadows. It looked very flat. It looks like something you would do on Photoshop where you take a person and you put them behind a person. And
So yeah, seems a little odd. Just asking questions here. Well, today we were able to secure the birth certificates and the death certificates and some marriage certificates, which confirm that Kamala either made a huge mistake, all by accident, or she outright lied because she wanted to convince the public that she was Black. Do not go away, you guys, because this is about to get crazy. Welcome back.
So that was actually episode 71. So the first video I showed you where she talked about how Janet Jackson was being interviewed by The Guardian, that's where it began. And then that was episode 71. And I can't tell you how deep it gets. So, yeah, so we're about to go into some other videos, but that picture that she showed, you can find it just if you Google Kamala Harris grandmother, you'll see it, and it looks poorly photoshopped, like not even good. There's no hands in it. It's very flat. Usually when someone's standing in front of another person, you'll see shadows from the front person onto like the body of the other person. So that was just kind of weird to me. So
what I discovered was quite startling. Now, I'll ask you, when did you first get the idea that Kamala was Black? Well, you'll say, yeah, when she kind of started running with Joe Biden. And that claim really came from Kamala herself. When they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, they understood that Kamala Harris published a book in 2019 called The Truth That We Hold. And presumably the book was filled with truth that she was holding. I had a look through it, and I saw this picture of her and her grandmother, clearly a Black-looking grandmother, on page 282 in the photograph section. It reads, as you can see, visiting my paternal grandmother, Beryl, in Jamaica. Also on that same page, there's another photo of her. Again, you can see it's black and white. I'm not quite sure why it is black and white, but it says, when I was 10 months old, I visited Spanish Town, Jamaica. This is me with my mother and my paternal grandfather, Oscar Joseph. And now this guy looks mixed. He looks Asian of some description, but you can see the idea here is that she's definitely trying to introduce, in a manner of photos, things that make her race look more complicated.
So even that picture looked like there was two people standing next to it, one another, and then just a baby was plopped in the middle of it. Black and white. What they didn't even go do a good job of the Photoshop. And I guess they just thought that no one would ever investigate this or care. So, yeah, so it gets deeper. So let's take a look at the next clip. This is, she's about to deep dive into public records now. And this one just starts getting weird because it shows that Candace Owens she's invested in this. So she's going to go into some public records, and it just you'll see.
In 1960. So last night we decided to continue our research to see if we could find birth certificates and marriage certificates and death certificates, which could further signify those points, and indeed it did. And it also raised even more questions about her genealogy. So let's go through those. Here is the birth certificate for her paternal grandmother. This is Kamala's paternal grandmother, Beryl. Okay, now you can see on this birth certificate that Beryl is spelled with an I. It's Beryl Magdalene. And you can see the reason why we know this is the correct Beryl is because the mother is listed as Iris Finnegan later on.
See, so she's not playing around. She actually wants to find discrepancies to say, you know, Candace, maybe you're on the wrong path. But it's not happening. Like, there's just too many coincidences, too many things that don't jive. And when you're investigating something and things just don't quite add up, the math ain't mathing, as they say, you start to look for more clues to either confirm or deny your claims or the facts that you think you found. Right. So now, because she's getting so confused by some of the information with birth certificates, she asked her public for help. Hey, if you're out there, you find anything around the world, I don't care where you live, send it in to info@candaceowens.com. We'll research it. So she's not messing around. Okay. I just want to let you know that. So now she's getting public help.
All right, guys, you can stop everything because this is officially the only podcast that you need to listen to today. Yesterday, I received an email from a woman all the way in New Zealand who decided to turn into Sherlock Holmes and fully dedicate herself to investigating Kamala Harris and all of these missing documents and all of these questions. And what she uncovered is potentially so shocking and so alarming that we can officially close the $1,000 bounty because she's earned it. I mean, she's going to receive the full 1K, because this is now getting dark and twisted. And my suspicions about Kamala Harris potentially pretending that the help was her family maybe have been confirmed. I'm going to let you guys judge. Don't want to get way ahead of myself, but do not go away, and welcome back to Candace.
So what she's talking about is that picture of the black lady who she called her grandmother. Candace said, I don't think that's her grandmother. There was something about the facial expression, and Candace has Caribbean family, Jamaica or somewhere, or St. Thomas, somewhere like that. She just doesn't have the facial effects of a grandmother, and there was no arm around the shoulder, there was no affection. She just I bet she was like a nanny or maybe the help, and that's what she's talking about. So that was quite interesting. But as I said, she started soliciting her public. Like, if you're watching this, if you're keeping up with me, any information you can send me, I'm going to give you $1,000 for the information if it proves true and factual. And people just start deep diving. So now imagine you have hundreds of thousands of people around the world involved in this investigation. So even if, let's say Kamala did get a cease and desist or a threat of a defamation suit, that would not stop the investigation, because all these people will be like, what's going on? True story. When she was doing the Bridget Macron story, researching as to whether the First Lady of France was a transgender, she did get that, but people kept digging. And that story has not died. So it's still going on. Candace just doesn't want to lose her YouTube channel, but she knows that the work is done out there. And she said, we'll be back to that. We just want to take some time off from it. All right. So this next clip is that she gets an email from one of her viewers.
So then this gets crazy. I get an email. Actually, I got 2 emails, but this one in particular made me sit up straight in bed. Like, I'm not kidding. I was about to fall asleep, and I just decided to check the email box, and I sat up. I sat up just like this and started texting everyone. And I woke my husband up. I was like, you have to read this email. This is completely crazy. It came all the way from New Zealand. Shout out to New Zealand. I'll be on tour there soon, you guys. Get out there, buy some tickets, because we're going to talk about this now. That's the only thing I'm going to speak about in New Zealand. But I'm going to just read this email to you because it's just incredible. Kia ora from New Zealand, Candace. My name is blank. And after your first podcast about the family of Kamala Harris yesterday, I went down the rabbit hole all day looking for photos of Beryl Finnegan Harris's brothers and sisters, as you asked. I was so intrigued and I wanted to take up your challenge.
So again, I'm not going to give you the email because I want you to go watch the episodes. If I give you too much here, you won't want to watch the episode. And I don't want to do that to Candace Owens. She's done very hard work. She's very invested in this, and I'm not trying to steal her thunder. I'm trying to help Candace by getting you to watch those videos, because if 2.7 billion people can watch a Menendez documentary, a made-for-television documentary, and then you all band together to get these young men out, or older men out now, who've been in jail since the 90s, well, for God's sake, invest this kind of time and passion into selecting what could be, or what should I say, finding what could be a fake president. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. So next up, and by the way, I said episode 2 earlier. This actually starts at episode 70 of her YouTube channel. Some of them are on her live, like, when you go to YouTube, you can look at videos or you can look at lives. Well, most of them are on the lives tab, but some of them are on the videos tab, because some she did live and some she recorded. Okay, because she would wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh my God, I just got some information, I got to make a video. So she didn't go live, she went on ahead and recorded. So that was the email. And now this one, it shows how invested she is.
All right, guys, happy Friday. Well, if we've learned anything this week, it's that the media should have just left Janet Jackson alone. That really is the lesson. That really is the moral. I mean, I didn't want to be doing this. I told my husband I was going to chill for the rest of the year because we've had enough excitement this year. Fired, banned from YouTube. I was like, I'm just going to relax. But then the media came out and tried to paint Janet Jackson as mentally unbalanced. And I'll be honest, something came over me. I was just like, and so here we are. Welcome back to Candace.
So yeah, so she really started to dig, and by this time, I think we're only probably about, I don't know, 6 to 7 episodes in, and there's twice as many. So yeah, it shows how invested into this she is. So now she's starting to get family information. She's starting to meet not only family of the Harrises, but friends of family.
Obviously, I'm not going to share any of their information. We found a lot, but Obviously, I'm not going to share any of their information. We found a lot, but it would help. It would help us better understand why Kamala is hiding an entire piece of her family. It's completely bizarre. So what we want to do today, because so many of you guys are emailing me, is to just organize what we know for a fact, plus tell you a couple of new things that we've discovered in the last few hours. And then if you want to send me more stuff, just make sure it's one of the things, or it's pertaining to one of the things that we have a question mark on. So first, we're going to just go through a timeline of the relevant people. Let's start with Beryl Magdalene Christie. So we're going to actually give you guys this timeline so you can look through it. Anything that is italicized means that it's still a question mark. We're still wondering whether or not this document could be Beryl or could be somebody else, and we're awaiting a confirmation. What we know for a fact is that Beryl was born in 1917. We know this because we have the birth certificate, and Iris's name, which is Beryl's mother, is listed as Iris Finnegan on the birth certificate.
So it's getting deep. It's getting deep. So she's starting to find more certificates, more things that tie things together, pull out some truths, names misspelling, things like that. I trust you watch this, you're going to be like, wow, I didn't even know this kind of stuff was possible. So that's where that went. So where are we now? Oh, so now we're going to talk about why Janet Jackson might be kind of anti-Kamala. We'll talk about that after this video.
And why there are certain people who are protected. And so at that time, they were going around asking a lot of powerful people what their opinions were on the Michael Jackson case. And one of those people who was asked was Kamala Harris, then the deputy city attorney in San Francisco. And here's what she had to say.
That could mean life in prison. And cases like this can depend on the testimony of the child accuser.
In general, the child will be able to recall and recollect with some detail the incident, and that is persuasive to a jury, even if it is the only testimony that is available.
Yeah, so Kamala Harris was involved in the Michael Jackson accusation lawsuit. She was trying to prosecute him. Of course, he was acquitted. And then it was just kind of like, So Janet's family, you think you're going to mess with my brother and I'm going to forget, 30 years later? No, it's not going down. But here's what's interesting at the time. You hear bits and pieces of news today that happened 30 years ago, and you'd be like, oh, yeah, that did happen. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Check this out. I mean, this threw me for a loop, and I was just like, "What? Where's it at?"
Was eventually acquitted of all charges. But what's really stunning is when you juxtapose this to what Donald Trump said at the time, then just a real estate magnate. Take a listen.
Michael's been a long-time resident of Trump Tower, and last night the Donald strongly reiterated his defense of Jackson with Larry King by going after the accuser's mother.
She's had plenty of experience at going after people, and she goes after them viciously and violently, and I saw a story and I read another story about some of the things she's done, and I don't believe it.
But you know what it's like when an indictment comes down.
It's tough.
It's presumption.
It's tough. It's tough to win, but I have a feeling he's going to win, Larry. The interesting thing is I've known Michael from many different standpoints, and Michael would spend a lot of time with my kids. I have beautiful kids, and at the time, like at Mar-a-Lago, and even in Trump Tower, the kids were very young. Michael would come, play with the kids. He just loved children. He was not a child molester, and I am certain of that. He loved children. He'd play with my son Eric and my son Donald, and he'd just play with them forever. He loved children, but he was not a child molester. And, you know, that whole final saga of Neverland and the police and what they did was, I think, a very, very bad part of Michael's life.
Isn't that bizarre? Isn't that? I'm telling you, Candace is freaking awesome. Like, to put that together. And he's talking about Kamala. And isn't it funny? He goes, indictments are tough to beat. He goes, very tough. And then he's talking about how Kamala just gets, once her claws is out, she gets in you. Very nasty. Anyway, I just, that piece floored me. All right, so now she's looking for dad. And this gets interesting as well. See what happens here. So when she looks for dad.
Now, I want to show you something that's actually fascinating. So we've already deduced that for whatever reason, they, and by they, I'm referring obviously to Kamala's family, particularly Donald Harris and Kamala herself, are trying to pass off via a sleight of hand white Iris as black Iris, okay? I'm going to break this down again. I'm going to be real careful here. Black Iris is Iris Finnegan. He claims that Iris Finnegan, Black Iris, is Kamala's great-grandmother. She claims that it's her great-grandmother in her book, and we see no evidence of that aside from this picture, which Donald claims that he shot of Kamala sitting on her lap. I felt that Iris was the help. What we know about...
Now look at that picture. It just looks like a lady is sitting on a porch or something. They got a picture of, it almost looks like the same picture that I showed you earlier where her supposed grandfather's holding her. They took the same baby and just photoshopped it on the lap. Again, no shadows, different errors. One picture looked like it might be from 1935. The other one might be from 1962. I don't know, but that's what I guess we're kind of, I don't know. But you see what I'm saying here?
About Iris Finnegan is that her her maiden name is Allen. So she was born Aura Iris Allen Finnegan.
So what she's talking about there is once you start deep diving and doing research, there's Finnegans in the family, which are Irish people, white Irish people, not black Irish people. There's also people with similar names that are Jamaican, but yet they all have some type of relation, and it just gets really weird. So, oh my God, I was down in a rabbit hole. I could not sleep at night that this was getting so deep. Now, family reaches out. Yeah, check it out.
All right, everybody, stop the presses because somebody from the Harris family Harris Family Circle has contacted me. Apparently, the family is being inundated with calls from the press, particularly the Washington Post. And so I know that the VP debates happened last night, but scrap that because this is all I can talk about. I'm very sorry. Plus, I got an email from a man named Moses, and he is swearing that Kamala's paternal line is Jewish. And he's not just speculating. He actually put together an entire compelling document that I'm going to show you. This is all getting extremely crazy, but we are getting very close to the truth. So let's get started. Welcome back to Candace.
Yeah. So, and like I said, I'm not going to give you the tea. I'm not going to spill the tea. Candace does that for you. You need to go watch these videos. And I can tell you, your mouth is going to be, oh my God. It ain't sweet. It is really intense once you start putting all these pieces together. Here's another part of that same episode. Let me see. I don't have a producer, so I have to do all this myself. I know when you're watching other shows, they're like, play 17, and some other guy just throws them on. I got to do all this myself because I'm a new YouTuber, and I'm just trying to keep you guys updated on news, politics. All right, here we go. Part 2.
So that's interesting. So here is what happened earlier today and why we are so late today on the podcast. We received an email from someone that was purporting to be a very close family friend of somebody in Kamala's family. Now, of course, we instantly fleshed this out, researched the person on Facebook, and it looked pretty legit right off the bat that this person could plausibly be a close family friend to the Harris family. I'm going to be scant on the details here because we've not yet been able to get on the phone, hoping that will happen later tonight with the actual Harris relative. But the conversation that we had with the friend of was incredibly interesting. He basically said that this particular Harris family member would like to talk, that they have been watching the series, paying attention to it, and they have some things that they would like to clarify and some things that they would like to say. And I instantly said, of course, that's exactly what we have been waiting for. We're not doing this. Well, it's getting fun, obviously, but we're doing this because we are just realizing some major holes. And this woman is trying to be the president of the United States. It's relevant. Everybody should be talking about this. We cannot have somebody become the president of the United States who is telling us some major lies about their background.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. So now people are reaching out. This is getting out there. How is it that this Candace Owens investigation is getting out there and the common people are attaching on to it and sending emails and reading her emails and sending her stuff and reaching out to family and like, hey, you check out the latest Candace Owens stuff? What? And now uncles and cousins and family members are reaching out and going, hey, you got one thing right, but you got this wrong. You got these things right, you got this wrong. And Candace is just like flushing it all out, getting all the tea, getting the proper information, and it's just is insane. You guys got to put down the remote, stop watching basic TV, and just tune in to this Candace thing. So the uncle reaches out, and she talks about that here.
I am absolutely giddy today, you guys. I did it. I spoke to Kamala's uncle officially. And by the way, he's a gem. 10 out of 10. I really wish that he was running for president instead of her because he comes across as a very honest man. I'm going to tell you all about that conversation and how it's now led me to many more questions. So many more questions that I have about Kamala and her true heritage. Also, she's once again been asked about her racial identity. This happened just 3 days ago. And suddenly she's a little iffy on the answer. Kamala and me are now in a very particular kind of relationship. I'm like Maury, and she's essentially my guest. I'm asking her a question. Kamala, during your run as president, we asked you if your genealogy was actually Irish Indian.
You said no. The lie detector determined that was a lie.
Oh! Welcome back to Candace.
Oh, God, she makes me laugh. She makes me laugh. My wife don't like her. My wife said, she thinks she knows so much. She thinks she knows everything. I'm like, she does. But yeah, so Uncle reaches out. So what she was talking about is that Candace was on All the Smoke podcast, and that's Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, the former NBA basketball players. And All the Smoke is usually about sports, but it's also about the Black community as well as some politics. And so she was on that show, and she was questioned about what people say about her being black or not being black.
Okay, so 2 days ago or 3 days ago, Kamala was asked again about her Black heritage, and suddenly she is getting a little iffy on the details. You can see she does not want to engage in the conversation, and the answer that she actually gives is fantastic. It is just fantastic, and we need to now pick it apart. So she appeared on a show called All the Smoke, and she was interviewed by the hosts, which are former NBA players Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. I want you to pay very close attention to her answer here. Take a listen.
What do you think when you hear people kind of questioning just the fabric of who you are?
Well, one, I don't listen to it.
Okay.
I'm really clear about who I am, and if anybody else is not, they need to go through their
That's
own
their
level of
issues.
therapy. That's not my
That's
issue.
their issues, right?
My mother was very clear. She was raising two black girls to be two proud black women. And it was never a question. You know, it's funny because over the years, journalists, some, not most, will want to talk about it. And I say, okay, if you want to have this conversation, I'm prepared to have it, but sit down and get comfortable for a few hours. If you want to start talking about race in America, you want to talk about the 1/8 rule?
A drop.
You want to talk about what it means in terms of who you are perceived to be and the impact that can have on the rest of your life, regardless of who you actually are in terms of your God-given capacity and the rights that you have and should have. So, you know, I don't mess with that. I think that's other people trying to figure some stuff out that and they
got some issues.
They got to deal with it.
Wow. So she just doesn't answer the question at all. Right.
So let me tell you a personal situation with me. I have mixed race children. Mother's white Irish. Of course, I'm black. I've never had that conversation with them about one drop. Since I don't practice racial idolatry, I don't push on the fact that you're black. Be proud of both heritages, your black heritage, be proud of your Irish heritages. I don't try and put one over the other. The Indian culture has a very, very strong culture. I know that because I know a lot of them. I know a lot of Indians. I know a lot of people, you know, Bengalis, Arab. I was in the Navy. I spent a lot of time in the Middle East. Very proud, very strong. Why would Kamala Harris' mother raise them to be proud black women as opposed to proud Indian women? Especially when you divorced the father, who was supposedly a black man, when your children were very, very young. That whole thing mentally just doesn't line up for me. We don't try to push our daughters to be proud black women or proud black girls. You know what? You're humans. Just be proud people. Be proud of your father's heritage. Be proud of your mother's heritage and your grandparents' heritage and all of that. Why put one race over another? So I found that story to be a little bit odd. I want to point that out. I don't know. She was very iffy about the question when they asked that. I don't listen to him. Well, I'm confident that you are hearing the chatter. I'm confident that you're hearing the chatter. That's what I'll say about that. All right, so now she actually gets really deep and she starts doing your flow chart.
And so I'm going to pull up this chart now so that you guys can follow along. Okay. So we see Donald Harris, and above him, we know that his father is Oscar Joseph Harris. And then we've drawn this line across to Beryl Christie Finnegan, who we just can't seem to find outside of that picture of her next to Kamala Harris. Okay. And then, of course, above Oscar Joseph, we are told that his parents are Joseph Alexander and Christiana, Miss Christy Brown. So let's actually start, by the way, in the corner there, we have Iris Allen Finnegan. That's I
didn't show you that for you to follow. I just wanted to show you how deep it gets. You see what I'm saying? When you start watching these episodes and she starts going down these rabbit holes and she starts following people, I'll tell you another story. I decided to do ancestry DNA. You know, you spit in the tube, you send it off to Ancestry, and all your facts start coming back. And you can also build your family tree on the website, et cetera, et cetera. And as I was going down that rabbit hole with my family, I started to discover some what could be truths about my own genealogy. And I said, my mother at the time, who's deceased, may she rest in peace, was unable or unwilling to answer some of the questions I might have. And when your mother's old, you may not want to ask the questions that's going to bring up old sadness or old heartache. So you decide, just forget it. So you start to ask siblings, say, look, I got older siblings, some who are 8, 9, 10 years older than me. Hey, what went down in 1965 or 1970? You guys were born. Who was this guy? Who was that guy? And finally, as I started getting information, I just dropped the whole thing because I knew who I am, but that started to make me question who I was. So if I could do that to myself, imagine with Candace pulling up family trees and going down the ancestry and genealogy path, things just start to like question mark, well, who's this? And then how are they related? How could this be her father? That guy's here, and who's this person? If that's her grandmother, then who's this lady? You know? So that's why I wanted to show you that chart, because when you start to get into the episodes, you start realizing that some things just don't add up. All right, so we're almost there, and I just again, this is just very deep stuff, and so now here she's going to talk to us a little bit about MK Ultra.
And lo and behold, someone sends me a link to an article written. What are the chances of this? It was written by a Japanese guy. I'm in Japan, and now I'm getting sent an article that's written by some Japanese guy who claims that he knows all about Kamala, all about Kamala's family, particularly all about Kamala's mother, who he said was involved in the MK Ultra program. So first and foremost, stop the presses. Some of you guys are new to this podcast. Some of you guys are not new. And you know that when we began this independent endeavor, I basically said that reading the book Chaos was required reading. It was all about the MK Ultra program. It was all about the Charles Manson murders that actually the CIA was involved in. Like Charles Manson, we were supposed to believe he was this big, scary guy who was behind all of these murders in Hollywood, when in reality, the CIA had him as he was a Fed. They turned him while he was in prison. Obviously, we're allowing him to give out all of this LSD to brainwash these women. I mean, just an incredible story that really makes you confront what your government is capable of.
Yeah, so that's how deep it gets. We start getting into possible CIA involvement, deep state involvement. And that's why I'm saying it matters. Like this goes beyond, is she black? Is she Indian? It goes beyond that. It goes into conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory isn't always crazy. Do you notice that like every time you'll see someone on TV and they start teaching facts, something happens to them? Dave Chappelle, his doctor started giving him drugs. He went to Africa. He disappeared. Kanye West, they made you think he was crazy. Now even with the Diddy thing, they're painting Jaguar Wright to be crazy. Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell has history with Diddy, child trafficking, all these ties that bind, as they say. But as soon as that information starts coming out, they be like, they're crazy. And then they start making the public think they're crazy and they're not credible, and you can't listen to them. You know? So that's why I want you to watch these episodes, because it's deeper than just race and color, because that's what the media wants you to think, that this is high level, like just surface level. It's about race, but it's not about race. It's deeper than that. And I have to tell you, I worry about Candace, and I'll tell you why. But hopefully she's protected. This next episode just takes a left turn. Check this out. This is crazy.
I want you to take this with a grain of salt. There could, of course, be another Kamala Devi Harris who resided in California.
What's the chances? Devi is an Indian name. Kamala Devi Harris, who happens to live in California. Check this out.
But we did come across a Kamala Devi Harris who applied for a marriage certificate on April 29th of 1984. So our Kamala would have been 20 years old. I'm going to show you that document. You'll notice that it is blurred. It's intentionally blurred because you have to purchase it, which we have. So you guys don't have to go out and do that. Essentially, you have to purchase it and then they deliver it electronically within 24 hours. We did that this morning because it was closed yesterday. What it shows us is a marriage between a Kamala D. Harris and a Philip J. Henderson, which took place in Reno, Nevada. What we know from this document thus far is that the Kamala that is listed, Kamala D. Harris, was a resident of California, and that her husband's residence is listed as in Michigan. That is literally all we know, okay?
Why would you hide a marriage? Who was the guy? Again, she said, take it with a grain of salt. It may not be her. The person's name just happened to be Kamala Devi Harris. My name is Christopher Yaden Wright. I've never met another Yaden in my life. Better yet, I use Christopher Y. Wright on almost all legal or significant documents. You know why? Because there's so much credit theft, or whatever they call it, identity theft, that if they see a Y, it has to be me. There's not many men with any name that starts with Y. I am named after a country town in Pennsylvania called Yaden. Yaden, PA. Look it up, Y-E-A-D-O-N. So if my name appears on anything that says Christopher Y. Wright or Christopher Yaden Wright, it's me. How many Kamala Devis, D-E-V-I, do you think actually exist? I don't know. We're just about to the end, guys. I want you guys to take this seriously and try it, because election day is coming very, very soon. So don't take it with a grain of salt, as she suggested. I like this right here, what she said.
Guys, we're getting closer. I am convinced that we are going to be the October surprise, because I am telling you things are developing on the Kamala front in a very big way. And I want to say this, I feel it in my soul, in my spirit, that this woman is an operative, that she was selected and that she was groomed by government agencies. I'm comfortable saying that publicly. I hope Kamala comes out and sues me, because that would afford us discovery so we can get answers to many questions that we have. She would have to prove that what I was saying was untrue, thanks to strong defamation laws. I've been receiving, by the way, as of late, a ton of emails about Tim Walz as well, Kamala's VP pick, a suspicious VP pick, because who exactly picked him? Absolutely no one out there thinks that it was Kamala herself that said, yeah, give me the governor of Minnesota, huh? Who is he? What?
So yeah, I mean, she's like, bring it. Sue me, please. File a defamation lawsuit, please. Because now you're going to have to take all this information to the court to prove you are who you say you are. You know? So I just thought that was strong right there. She's calling you. Please, sue me. The Tim Walz thing, I saw something on TikTok today, and I don't even know if I want to say it on YouTube because I don't want to be bad. But I put some information up on TikTok that I saw on TikTok, and I was like, I Googled what I saw on TikTok, and I couldn't find it on my Google search. I had to keep adding words to it, and finally it came up, and it was like, someone claims that Tim Walz is involved in ABC. And I'm not going to say it here because I don't want my videos taken down, but you can do some research on Tim Walz and a certain scandal involving a boy. That's all I'm going to say. I'll stop there. And then you might see some drama from years ago. But so obviously Candace found the same type of information, and she'll go from there. So now we're almost up to date. So there's a journalist, and you know what? I should have read more, but there's a journalist, and I think she's in England, and she's known by Lady C, and she's been watching the Kamala Harris investigation. So she had a friend from Jamaica, from the same community as supposedly Kamala's father and uncles. And so she interviewed her, and it was quite shocking. So remember the lady whose Kamala's on her lap, then the same lady, or I don't know if this was supposed to be a different lady, a young Kamala took a picture in front of, all of it photoshopped in my estimation. She was a black, brown-skinned woman, and her name is supposedly Beryl. And this lady, this Jamaican lady, who's being interviewed by the British lady, just watch. It just gets weird.
Well, I am not quite sure what to say here, other than I humbly submit myself for your consideration to receive a Pulitzer Prize, maybe Time Person of the Year, a Golden Globe, a Grammy, something. I deserve something for my staunch commitment to the defense of Janet Jackson, because guess what has happened? And by the way, this is not even unbelievable. It's actually the most believable thing in the world. A Jamaican woman has stepped forward who I can verify to you knew Kamala's grandma Beryl. And she remembers her affectionately, by the way. Apparently, Grandma Beryl was a wonderful woman. She adored Kamala's Grandma Beryl. It was just one minor detail that was off. You see, the Beryl that she knew, the one that Kamala presented in her book, was not her, because the Beryl she knew was white. Yeah, let's get started.
That's not Miss Beryl.
That's not Miss Beryl.
That's definitely not Miss Beryl.
Okay.
That's not Miss Beryl.
So,
and
that means you have to just show it.
Yeah.
So,
that is not Miss Beryl.
That's not Miss Beryl.
Definitely not Miss Beryl.
Okay.
And I know what she looks like. I couldn't have been in a dream, and she definitely did not look like that.
There's another person, but could that be Miss Beryl?
No, that's not Miss Beryl. That's not Miss Beryl either.
Okay.
Don't know who that is.
Okay.
That's not Miss Beryl. That ain't Miss Beryl.
That was the funniest part of this whole investigation. That's not Miss Beryl. So all these pictures that are in her books, pictures of her on laps, pictures of her, that's not Miss Beryl. And Miss Beryl is supposed to be Kamala's grandmother. And if we watch the whole episode, that Jamaican lady, I was like, yeah, Kamala looks like Miss Beryl, but Kamala has more Indian features, where Miss Beryl didn't have those Indian features. She just looked like a fair-skinned white lady. So definitely watch that episode. It gets kind of deep. And so now this next clip I'm going to show you is going to bring you up to date. So I highly recommend that you catch up. And like what I'm going to do is I'm going to catch up and I'll follow up.
And succinctly put together everything that we have discovered thus far, because there are many people who are now realizing, no, this is not BS. This is not a conspiracy. Kamala has lied about her upbringing, has lied about her own genealogy, and many people have not been on this entire journey with us. And so I'm just going to sum it up for you very simply, okay? Kamala is completely lying about her heritage. She pulled the good old Barack Obama, dropped a book, an autobiography that was meant to legitimatize her to the Black public. And for whatever reason, in the public's mind, when somebody drops a book and calls it an autobiography, they just assume that somebody along the way did the due diligence, and therefore it must all be true because they found it in the nonfiction segment of the bookstore, a section of the bookstore. And that's just not true. That leaves a lot of room for politicians to lie.
So you're all caught up based on why I'm convinced that Candace has stepped on truth. Ironically, Kamala's book is called The Truth That We Hold, And Candace seemed to be holding it all. And oh my God, but she starts to go down other paths about, she learned that Barack Obama's nanny was a transgender in Indonesia and used to wear women's clothing and makeup. Like Obama saw her wearing her mother's lipstick or grandmother's lipstick. I can't remember, grandmother, mother. So that's the kind of thing I'm saying. When I read Dreams of My Father, I was totally dialed in into the whole liberal Obama save the world, hope and change agenda. And I love Barack Obama for what he stood for, but who is he? Who is he? Where did he come from? And I would love, love, love to deep dive him as much as we're deep diving Kamala, because after reading Chaos, as Candace recommended, and after learning more about MK Ultra and learning about the things that our government, our CIA is capable of, it just makes you wonder about everybody. Who are these people and where did they come from? Like, when did this start? Like, did it start with, I don't know, Roosevelt? Did it start with Eisenhower, Ford, Reagan? Like, has it been going on for hundreds of years? I know about the Masons. I know about, the skulls. Where did, like, when did all these people start deceiving the American people, the American public? When is red no longer red and blue no longer blue? Who has the red pill and the blue pill? And that it's just so much going on. It's just like you just don't even want to be involved anymore. You say, I don't care who the president is. I don't care about that. But I don't know. You actually do. So I'm going to leave with you with that. I'm just at an hour. I didn't want to be longer than an hour, but please, please watch this Candace Owens investigation and see what it holds. Walk away from it. But if you can invest 8 episodes into the Menendez brothers, you can invest 8 hours to 10 hours into the Candace Owens investigation. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.